Do you feel like you're living in a parallel universe?
Compared to what?
Compared to a universe where the good guys are good and the bad guys are bad, and you can kind of trust what people tell you about it?
Well, so if I were to indulge a tendency of mine, which is to, so generally I have the capacity to start a process whereby I could get into like magical thinking again. So basically there's this door in my mind where if I were to indulge, like going into that door, I could go into magical thinking again, and who knows where that would go. So yeah, part of it is this sort of magical belief that when I committed my crime, I created an alternate universe for myself. And, but that it also affected the rest of the world, you know? Because when I was crazy, I felt that I'd stumbled onto a sort of way of being that, like, people probably used to live in their, you know, I thought of it as like a rediscovery of some like shamanic way of being or something. And it was so different from being depressed because I think I induced a manic state in myself. And it was so different from depression that it seemed to counterbalance it and even like undo the effects of depression in some sense. But I was also heavily drinking, and I was like drinking. In the morning I would drink like several energy drinks, and then in the evening I would just drink beer till bedtime. And then sometimes I'd have margaritas at lunch. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about. I mean, I don't literally think that I caused anything, but sometimes it's interesting to think about how I feel. It often feels like I'm in a bizarre world.
Well, in a lot of ways, the kind of daily habits that you were just mentioning have completely disappeared. Like, you kind of live a very normal life in some ways now, in that, you know, you eat healthy and you exercise and
True.
you have lots of sleep and
Yeah.
all the things needed to be healthy, and yet all these things in the world seem to be inverted.
Yeah, it's really weird. I changed my mind about a lot of things when I was in prison, and I decided there were things I wasn't going to do anymore. Going to prison, you're like, oh, prison is this bad. And when you realize that plenty of times previous to prison, your life was worse than prison, you know you have to make changes in your life. Like, there were several points in my life that were worse than prison, hands down. And so it was kind of nice to make the decision, like, I'm never going to do those things again. I would rather be in prison. And to be able to say that definitively is really freeing, because it's like, oh, I would rather be in prison than, you know, for me, you know, having depression and working at a pizza restaurant, the two things together are so bad for me that, especially, I guess, I mean, I used the drinking to help mask the depression, so I can't say that it's a complicated relationship with alcohol and depression, so I don't know, but that stage of my life when I was working at that restaurant and living that way with that belief system, with that lifestyle, it was worse than prison. And so, like, knowing that I never have to go back because prison is easier, I could go back to prison anytime I want. You know, I don't have to work in that kind of job. It's just weird to me because my life is so much easier than it used to be. I used to work so hard to get nowhere. And now I feel like I'm taking it easy and I'm making strides everywhere. And like before, it was just really hard to even see my problems, let alone solve them. And now, I mean, I have different problems, but I see them. And but the landscape is different. I mean, my political beliefs changed. I mean, I used to think exercise was like whack, you know, I used to think it was stupid, and now it's, I like it, you know.
You used to agree with Donald Trump, and now you don't.
What do you mean?
Doesn't he think that you only have like a finite amount of energy in your life?
I don't know what that is. I think he probably just says things to like...
rile people?
Yeah, he probably said that like thinking that it would be so funny if someone took that seriously, and then lots of people did.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
But now you believe in exercise.
Yeah, I used to think that trying to get big was gross.
Mm.
And now, like, I just, like, I don't fit into my old clothes at all. You know, I'm like 3 sizes larger than I was before I went to prison.
Do you think it was like a fear of taking up space?
No, I thought it was just cool to be like skinny as fuck. You know, I wanted to be like...
So it was like some deep metaphor?
Huh? No. I mean, maybe there was some part of me that wanted to be as like not be as inobtrusive as possible or something, but literally I just wanted to be like rail thin. Like, I thought that was cool for some reason.
Heroin chic.
Yeah, heroin chic, exactly. And now, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it was a key part of curing your depression, right?
Yeah, it was almost like a metaphysical like gift that I got to cure it, because I got to a point where I managed it. I felt like I could live with it in a way that I had, like, I worked for years to get to a point where I could live with it. And then...
How did you do that?
So with exercise and with meditation, and so one of the meditations I did was I would sort of dial in on the depression. Like, I would like pinpoint it in my body, almost like a little prick of pain or something in my body, and then I would hyper focus on it, and I would try to make it as big as possible. And then the relationship between me and my depression would almost invert. I would become the depression to my depression, and then it would try to run away from me instead of me running away from it. And then it would disappear for like a few hours, which is kind of a weird... I didn't understand why, but it would just go away. And then it would come back, and I still had like lethargy, and I still had like, you know, that like a heavy feeling, and I still like would have moments of like purposelessness, but like just knowing that I was never going to go back to my old work, or I was never going to go back to, I mean, it was kind of self-empowering in a way. Like, probably most people wouldn't think of that as self-empowering, but for me it was really self-empowering. And so just little things like that helped. And yeah, and then with exercise too, and I got to a point where, I felt like I could live with it on the streets and not feel suicidal. And then like, I was sustaining that for, you know, an indefinite period of time. And then I got a book from my aunt that was called Grain Brain. It was by Dr. David Perlmutter. And, you know, he wasn't claiming that all cases of depression are cured by going gluten-free or anything. But he was like, you know, I've had some success with some of my patients in curing depression by eliminating gluten, going to a more fat-based diet and stuff like that. So I was like, well, fuck it, I'll try it, you know. And, you know, like, what do I have to lose, basically? So I cut out the gluten. I would buy like lots of sausage and peanuts and cheese and stuff just to sort of give me fat calories instead of carb calories. And
this was in prison?
Yeah. It cost about $80 a month to do that. And and I dropped all the bread and stuff, and I stopped doing sugar too. I didn't eat that much sugar in the first place, but I wouldn't drink sodas or anything. So I totally cut sugar out, totally cut gluten out. ate a lot of fat, and within like 1 week, my energy level changed. My weight started dropping rapidly. I was losing like 7 pounds a week,
Wow.
and yeah, it was just the depression just went away, and it's just really weird. Like it totally went away. Like it wasn't like, I don't know. And then it comes back when I eat shitty food.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I cheat, and then I get that like hopeless feeling again, and it's really weird. So like now I kind of know if I get that feeling, it's almost like, I remember Carrie Fisher. I read one of her books, and she talks about bipolar, and she calls it mood weather. And yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like that. It's like, oh, there's this shitty mood that just descends on you for no reason, but it's usually food related. So sometimes, you know, I'll have like French fries that were cooked in a fryer that has like lots of particulate from bread and stuff, from the breading in it, and I can feel that, and it's not as strong as the depression was when I was eating like that all the time, but it's definitely the same feeling.
What do you think about all the jokes about gluten-free lifestyle?
Yeah, you know, like, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are on it as a trend, you know. I have a friend that thinks it's like glyphosate poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't rule that out, you know, like it could be something else. But it's not that hard to be gluten-free, and if it is something else, I'm sure they'll figure it out, and then they'll be like, oh, and then maybe, I also think that it could be not all gluten, but like maybe I can handle, you know, trace amounts, but not, I don't know.
Or like heritage wheat or something.
Yeah, heirloom wheat instead of the, but, you know, like, yeah, and I've had people give me shit online about it, you know, but it's not like, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go back to eating wheat because someone was like giving me shit, and I'm gonna, yeah.
Wait, you're not gonna change your behavior because someone was shitty to you online?
Exactly.
It's weird.
It's a brave new world. Yeah.
I mean, there seems to be something very specific about like diet cynics, though.
About what? Diet sex?
Cynics.
Oh, diet cynics. Okay.
And that it's like particularly intense, and that people like get really worked up over it, even though other people's dietary choices have nothing to do with them. But I think part of it is that it does seem to, I think people take it as like some sort of personal attack. That's why they're like, oh, that's stupid. Oh, I can't believe you do that. You just fell for it. And it's like, I don't know. What do you think of that kind of?
I don't know. I think it's part of the way people are. You know, if they find something dubious, they'll like test your resolve. Like, oh, do they mean it? Like, there's no way to confirm. Like, I mean, how fucked up would it be if it was in my head and I made up that gluten was bad for me without knowing that, you know? Like, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's a feature of the human mind that if they don't believe something, they'll make fun of someone for believing it, you know? Like, everyone does it.
It's just kind of interesting to me that people are more skeptical that diet changes could have any effect on mental health than they are about a magic pill having some effect on mental health. Like some random molecule that people are like, this one is gonna really navigate complex brain chemistry.
Well, a lot of people that are skeptical about food are also skeptical about medication, and a lot of people still have the whole, oh, just get over it kind of mentality.
Well, you're kind of hinting at a little bit of the dark side of some of the health movements currently, which is a distrust of science. There does seem to be some sort of tension there.
Yeah, I think that's a symptom of distrust in all of our systems. Like, I think that in their daily lives, people are lied to by, you know, society and government so much that they kind of lose trust in everything. Like everything becomes up for scrutiny, basically. And I mean, I can sympathize with that. I mean, having done the paleo diet and like a keto diet, like I know how much like better I felt on that diet. Like now I eat more carbs and stuff than I used to just because it's cheaper, but like the food pyramid is total bullshit, you know? Mm-hmm. And doctors still don't really talk about like cholesterol, you know, like they don't talk about cholesterol being good for you. Mm. So like it's no wonder that no one believes anything anymore, because information travels faster than the speed of government, you know? So
well, what about when people start trusting really, or stop trusting really important things like vaccines?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're going to make it, to the extent that they're wrong, they're going to make it bad for themselves. And if there's any vaccine that they're right about being bad, then they'll have a leg up on everyone else. But I think for the most part, yeah, they're taking a risk.
What would you say to someone? I guess there's two people I'm wondering what your advice for. So, first person has serious depression. What is like kind of the first piece of advice that they ask you that you give them?
So probably the average person that has depression, they probably are totally stuck in a life that they don't want and they can't even see it. I think they would need a lot of help figuring out the problems in their lives. And they would need to be taught things that they probably never thought to think about why they don't have the results they want. Because a lot of depressed people probably don't have life outcomes that they find satisfactory, and they probably really need help seeing how to fix that, more so than they need medication. Because the medication, and I think, because I was on Prozac for a little while, and I mean, it kind of makes you okay with what you're doing, but what if you're not okay with what you're doing? And the, you know, medication kind of masks that. Like, so I was literally happier in prison than I was prior to prison. And it took doing that, like I took kind of a weird leap of faith with my crime. Like I said before, crimes are suicides. And to learn that my life wasn't worth living was an interesting thing to learn after the fact, you know, like I already knew it. Otherwise I couldn't have done the crime. But to like really learn it, I mean, yeah, they need help. They need the kind of help that they're not likely to get, which is unfortunate. But they should think about doing things they want to do, like rather than putting up with things they don't want to put up with.
Mm-hmm. I guess to the second person, who's wondering, how do you cultivate like a healthy amount of skepticism and on the flip side kind of curiosity, like enough questioning about your life and about conventional wisdom that you're able to get traction, but not so much that you're sort of lost in the like a void of there are no truths.
I don't know. I don't know that I have an answer for that. It's like, how do you distrust without distrusting too much? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, maybe judge your life outcomes a little bit. I mean, if you're happy, then it doesn't matter, right? Like, if you're really distrustful and you're like living in the woods and you're happy, does it matter? Like I've often thought, like, could I be happy as a homeless person? And I think I could. And then would it matter if I don't trust vaccines or the government, you know? As long as you're not hurting anybody. Obviously, if you're happy being a serial killer, maybe that's not good for, you know, other people. And I wouldn't I wouldn't want a happy, I wouldn't want a happy serial killer running around. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you balance it. I mean, I think your life, there is feedback, you know, from reality. Like if you distrust enough in the right direction, your life should get better if you're acting on that distrust, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you distrust the financial system and then the choice you make is, oh, I'm going to get out of the financial system. I'm going to save all the money I've saved. I'm going to, you know, put in a house or put in gold or put in Bitcoin or whatever. And then if that pays off for you, then clearly your distrust was like warranted and it paid off. Mm-hmm. If you're like, oh, I distrust Bitcoin, so I'm going to put all my money in the stock market. I mean, it also kind of depends on what's going on, you know, like, I don't know, like, yeah. Because sometimes the stock market does go up, and sometimes the government, you know, flaps its wings and it doesn't crash, you know, just yet, you know?